All right, good morning. We've got the last part of the unit to talk about. And we talked about pre-industrial societies before this. Now we're going to talk about industrial and post-industrial societies, which we are in. We're in the post-industrial society. With industrial societies, the two biggest things to remember, the things that drive industrial societies are mechanization. So that's the big change from an agricultural society. Now you have machines that can do the work more efficiently. And the nature of where people live changes too. People go to the cities in search of jobs because mechanization creates factories and mills where people want to work. Those become the main institutions, places where people work. So people move to the cities to find those jobs and away from the farm in the countryside. It has a big effect on the family as an institution. Now you have members of the family working away from the home. When it was an agricultural society before that, people would all work at home. Now some of those bonds between family members start to break down somewhat, driven by the economics of industrial societies. So in an industrial society, that is a society where they're dependent upon science and technology to provide the basic goods and services necessary for people to survive. Mechanization replaces animal power, draft animals, and human power with machine power. And then urbanization, people move from the countryside, from small villages to larger cities, to the factories to work. Now the effects on the family, you may have seen some of these photos before from history class. When I say family members, I include children, because during the Industrial Revolution, we saw child labor where you could have kids, yes, that young, 5 years old, working in dangerous or really tough working conditions with long hours. There's a coal mine. It was not uncommon in mills like this one. You have these little kids working in front of or alongside these massive machines. It was not uncommon for kids to lose limbs or even be killed, be chewed up in one of the machines and spit out the other side. There's a great example of it. Kids standing on the machine. So it had a really profound effect on the family unit. Bowling pin setters right there. That hadn't become mechanized yet, so they actually relied on human power to set the pins up after somebody had, had just rolled. Okay, you get the idea. Two key terms that we should talk about from Tani's: Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. Gemeinschaft refers to the pre-industrial societies where solidarity, what held the society together, was tradition, kinship between people, close social ties, and there's a consensus on values and norms. And we see religion particularly important at that time. Gesellschaft refers to industrial societies where family ties are weaker, there's more competition, and the relationships between people socially is more impersonal. Now, Emil Durkheim, two key points here. So social solidarity, let me get to that. Social solidarity refers to the degree to which a society is unified, and he breaks social solidarity down into two categories: mechanical solidarity and organic solidarity. Now, this can be a little tricky because mechanical solidarity refers to pre-industrial societies where people generally did the same type of work, so farming, and there was a consensus on values. Everybody had similar values and accepted common norms. So that's pre-industrial, before mechanization. So sometimes people get this confused and they think that pre-industrial societies had organic solidarity. The best way I can say to remember it is kind of think the opposite of what the terms would normally mean. Organic solidarity comes along when you have industrial societies, where the unity between people in society is based upon the specialized roles that they perform. If I had to depend on myself for my food supply, I'd be in trouble really quick. I'd be starving pretty quickly. I depend on the farmers, I depend on the grocery store to put out the food that I eat. So we have different people who perform different roles in society based on the different statuses that they have. So we have doctors, we have lawyers, teachers, farmers, police officers, business people, and so forth. And that all comes about when we get those surpluses that start during the agricultural revolution. And then when we get to industrial society, when we get machines, people living in the cities, what holds us together are these different statuses and roles that we have, where we depend on somebody else to do something that we don't do. That's organic solidarity. Now, the last type of society is post-industrial society, which is the society type that we are in. The emphasis here is on providing services and information, and it's also based upon the use of computers, which blankets everything in society, which is certainly true of our society. These are the 5 characteristics of a post-industrial society, and this will be one of the questions on the formative. In a post-industrial society, this is the first time in the workforce that there are more people employed in service industries than agriculture and manufacturing. So service industries could be anything from, retail, fast food, to banking, something where you're performing a service for a customer in that respect. Second thing is there are more white-collar workers than blue-collar workers. We usually associate blue-collar work with the trades, white-collar work with somebody who's working like in business, one that doesn't require physical labor. In a post-industrial society, technical knowledge, and specifically technical knowledge dealing with computers, is the key organizing feature. And unlike previous times during the industrial society, the industrial age, where people discovered new technology, now technology is planned and assessed and corrected, improved, and so forth. And then finally, computers are relied on all across a post-industrial society. Every sector of the economy relies on computers. So 2 questions: will social instability continue, and what causes a return to social stability? So a quote here: the situation of normalness is intensely uncomfortable for us, and we will seek to create new rules to replace the old ones that have been undercut. So this is a functionalist perspective. So when we have dysfunction, it points to places that need correction, and society makes those corrections, and then we get stability again. So For sociologists, what are some things that they look at as signs of instability in a society? Crime would be one. The term illegitimacy, in other words, for some social scientists, they look at one parent families and they see that as a marker of instability or dysfunction in a society. Divorce rates can be another marker. These are some examples. And then weak norms or bonds in society, what Durkheim called anomie, would be another marker. So how does society return to social stability? By changing norms, changing values. Because a culture can change, it's used to create new social structures that are better adapted to new social and economic circumstances. Think about the different types of society. Think about how they change and adapt to new situations, like how they change economically and which groups are dependent upon or which institutions are dependent upon to organize society. Okay, so the last thing you need to do for the unit here before the test is to do the formative number 3, social structures formative number 3, and the practice test is up and set to go. So that means on Monday, if I have my days correctly for the A days, on Monday we will have the social structures test, and then we are on to the last unit, crime and deviance. Okay, have a good weekend.